And welcome back to episode 110 of the Your Wealth and Beyond podcast. And today, I want to introduce all the listeners and viewers to an incredible guest, Carly Pepin, a human behavioral specialist who helps people and entrepreneurs design their dream life. Carly, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Very, very excited to learn your story and how you help individuals. A lot of the listeners and the viewers for our podcast are entrepreneurs, or they've got dreams of becoming an entrepreneur. But I think what we'll talk about today can really impact anybody. You don't just have to be an entrepreneur to design your dream life and, you know, really find the passion of what makes each of us tick. So let's dig in. When we think about designing and helping people understand their true calling, what's the moment, like, how did you realize that this was your calling to be able to then go and help people? And we'll dig into a little bit more of what that means.
Yeah, and this is actually really inspiring because we can kind of dive into the depths of what it means and how we discover it just a little bit by me explaining my own story. So basically, what winds up happening is our lives is we have these voids, we have these things that we feel are unfulfilled, these things that almost feel like they're missing in our lives and ourselves. And as a result, those create part of our life purpose, right? So individuals who grow up and they don't have a connection with their family, you'll often find them being the most involved in their family, the most engaged and trying to really create something that they didn't get to have when they were a kid. You find individuals who grew up with, really low wealth and in poverty. What do? They go out and they build great wealth because it's like such a gap, such a void, right? So when we think about this as well, it was my own pains that technically bring my own pleasure, right? So I had a point in life where I definitely felt disconnected and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I was going. And it gave me a lot of anxiety. Like, that's the truth. It gave me a lot of anxiety. I was really depressed and I thought it was Los Angeles. So I moved to Australia thinking that would solve my problems, and it did not. Definitely didn't. And when I got there, everything hit me like a ton of bricks because all of the distractions were gone. And that's when I found my first coach, found out about human behavior to a greater degree, understanding who we are, what our values are, how our voids dried then, and how to actually incorporate it more into my day-to-day life. And ever since then, I've just been on that journey to be able to not just do it for myself, but also help others do it as well. Especially in business, we can get really burnt out in business if we're not focused on the things that truly matter most.
And is that when somebody comes to find you when they're like at their worst, they're burned out and they just don't know where to go and what to do?
Sometimes I don't suggest waiting until you're at your worst. Yeah. I think sometimes we do that because, excuse me, there's a little bit of a preconceived notion that if you're getting help or assistance, there's something wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with you. Some of my best clients that are most productive, like, they just continue and carry on doing work on themselves just because it's a habit and it's just a pattern now, and something that they've incorporated into their day-to-day lifestyle is growth, right? So yes, do people come to me when they're super burnt out and really stressed? Yes. Do you have to wait that long? No. If you start to catch it, it's wisdom to sort of hop on it like as soon as you possibly can, just because, we have different things that can also impact our health as well, like our overall physical health when we wait too long. So that's why I do suggest it. And even those stressors that we have on a day-to-day basis, if we wait too long, I know it impacts other areas of our lives, like even our relationships and stuff. Just because we're more agitated, we're cranky and frustrated, and that spirals into everything else as well. So I suggest hopping on a little bit sooner.
And so when you went to Australia, that's where you found the first coach that helped you identify some of these key traits to get your, not life on track, but finding, what makes you tick and what makes you happy, and trying to determine out what the vision for you and your ideal life looks like. Was that your first really learning about in human behavior can go a lot of different ways, but was that your first entree into it?
Yes, absolutely. So that was the first time that I actually got to work with a coach. In the past, I had been working with more traditional practitioners, and it just wasn't for me. Like, we talked a lot about what occurred, but it didn't seem that we were really overcoming any of the emotions around it. So part of the coaching as well when I first started, it was starting to learn how to overcome the actual emotions. And since then, I've had an opportunity to study significantly more to understand that we can completely transform the emotions that we have around something. Because if we think about it, a situation and a past situation, present, future, it's never the situation that controls us. It's how that we actually respond to it, perceive what it's doing to us. And so just having that data to be able to shift our perceptions is huge. Because again, if you're an entrepreneur or you're becoming one, it's a tricky thing. Like there's a lot that goes on with it. There's a lot of fantasies that are sold out there of do this, do that, high ticket clients. And I'll tell you one thing, high ticket clients, those things where they teach you how to sell high ticket clients. High ticket clients don't respond to that stuff. They're not gullible. They're high ticket and they have finances because they're not gullible to ploys. And so a high ticket client is going to come if you're your own authority, if you educate yourself, if you have like the background and you're able to assist them and get them results. And that's how you get high ticket clients. You don't need to sell them or do any gimmicks or stuff. If anything, my best sales with the high ticket clients is just showing up and being authentic and showing them how we're going to get results, right? So there's a lot of fantasies out there that are sold. And if we have emotions simultaneously, we run this ride as an entrepreneur of almost this roller coaster of these highs and lows, which is also very taxing on your system. It's very taxing. That's why we get burnt out.
Yeah, and being an entrepreneur wearing so many hats, a lot of times you're operating in fight or flight,
Yeah.
where it's constant chaos. And I think that's something, no matter where you are in your journey of running a business, whether there's, yourself or you've got 5 employees or 50, different timelines and milestones mean different problems. But so what are some of those common mental roadblocks that entrepreneurs that you've seen in the clients that you've worked with, what do we face as we're trying to, more so first identify what our ideal situation or ideal life looks like?
Yeah, we're going to compare ourselves a lot in the beginning. So even when I dive in with someone in the beginning of going through these processes and kind of understanding who they are, they'll start to give me answers in the way that they think their life should look like. So this is kind of the cool thing about our life purpose and our mission is it's already there. Like your life is already demonstrating it exists, right? It's already something that's going to be very important to you. And as a result, if I just look at what your life demonstrates, then I'm going to understand what's meaningful and purposeful to you, right? Like this morning I had a yoga class, right? I hopped on a yoga class and I could have done my hair for a podcast, but I didn't because I'd rather take the yoga class. If I look at my life, I prioritize taking a yoga class over having my hair look perfect for this call, right? And it's like, so you can see that I have a high value on my health. And if I'm doing that on a regular basis, on a day-to-day basis, then my life demonstrates that there's something about health that's really important to me, right? And if I dive deeper and ask someone like myself, like, well, what does yoga give me? What is all these things? What is this different dynamic? Then all of a sudden you're going to get these details and be like, oh, that's what's meaningful to you. That's what gives you purpose. And when we fill our day more and more with those things, all of a sudden, running from a yoga class to a shower to a podcast, it's not that big of a deal. It actually just seems like, I also love podcasts. I didn't want to skip that. I love speaking. So I didn't want to miss any of those things. And if I'm back to back on all the things, I just can't imagine giving up. I'm going to feel alive and inspired instead of down and drained. And so that's why it's really important to pay attention to what your life demonstrates you love to invest your time in. A lot of entrepreneurs, individuals get caught in the trap of thinking that procrastination is a bad thing, but it's also feedback. So if I look at your day and I say, you're procrastinating on these things, and you're gonna be like, I procrastinate all the time. And I'm like, yeah, but what don't you procrastinate on? Where are you like active? What are you replacing all these things with? And then you go look and see what your life is actually demonstrating. We're going to see a pattern. And that pattern shows me your life purpose, shows me what's meaningful to you, what gives you so much meaning that you'll go through pleasure and pain and do it every day. And then the question is, it's like, how do we incorporate this into our business? I have a client, he loves coaching, and he's a leader, definitely one of the upper end leadership teams, right? And so he leads a lot of teams at his company. But when I look at what inspires him the most, it's growing people. And he loves growing it within this company dynamic, right? And he doesn't want to be an entrepreneur. He loves growing it with the company dynamic. And he loves building people and growing people and watching this business like grow, right? And so we could sit there and say, he's procrastinating on being an entrepreneur. But the truth is he doesn't want to be an entrepreneur. He just loves doing this one particular thing. And he gets very paid very well in this business to build that. He gets paid very well to do something like that. So all of his values, his purpose is fulfilled and it's meaningful. If he compares himself to someone else, an entrepreneur, and says, I'm procrastinating on this, I should be doing this, he'll beat himself up. If he tries to go and do something that he thinks he should do instead of actually focusing on what he loves to do, he's going to get exhausted. He's going to get burnt out. So it's really paying attention not to what you think it should be, that's the comparison, but what your life is actually truly demonstrating.
And so how do you get in the beginning stages working with a client, how do you get them to understand what these high value things are, and then are they not following through on some of them because, X, Y, and Z, meaning they've got so much on their plate. And so they're giving up their health, or they're giving up the time with the family and the things that maybe they know in the back of their head. How do we get to understand what makes each of us tick and what makes, each of us be the maximum we can be in performing on a day-to-day basis?
And this is the cool thing, because if, like, let's say you're giving up on your health, you're giving up on your family, right? It's not as important to you as whatever you're replacing the time with. And that's okay. Everyone can't have, and more people so feel guilty about family dynamics. But think about it. If everyone had the same life purpose and we all had the same life purpose around family, like what else? We wouldn't be able to have the world function as it is. There's so many versatile things going on in our universe. Like to have everyone focus on the same thing, we wouldn't have like the diversity we have today. It's what makes the world run. And so it's just our guilt and shame thinking that it should be spent on this, as opposed to seeing, well, what are you doing anyways? Like I will go through the pleasure and the pain for clients. I definitely speaking. I love doing the podcast. I'll go through the pleasure and the pain for health, right? Technically, I was pretty sick yesterday and the day before. And I was like, today's the day, get back to yoga. And then I'm very energized right now, right? I'm very energized and I don't seem like I'm having any issues at all. But in a couple hours, I'll probably get a bit lethargic and I could bring my computer into the bedroom and start working from there. I'm going to get tired later. I have certainty. But right now, my energy is flowing because I'm doing something that I love, right? And it doesn't matter what's going on. I'm going to do it anyways. The question for everyone out there is, where does that apply to your life? No matter what's going on, no matter what you're going through, no matter how crazy, chaotic, sick, anything that you're going through in life, what do you do anyways? What do you make sure to get on track with, right? Like, even if I take a day off of like yoga, which I did yesterday, so it's too slammed, but it's like, I got right back on. I was like, okay, a day's enough. I'm going to get right back on because it's going to make me feel better. That was my perception. Even though I'll be tired later, it's going to make me feel better. And it's interesting because every person has this within them. They're just not paying attention and putting the dots together. So what are the things that energize you so much that no matter how you feel, once you start doing it, the energy comes from that? Oftentimes we're told we need to wait for the energy to do things, but the reality is when things are meaningful and purposeful to you, the energy comes as a result of doing that thing. It's actually technically reverse. So if you go look and historically write down all those things that give you that energy, right, you're going to find a pattern. There's usually 3 to 5 things in there that give you that, and you'll find that pattern, and it's amazing. And then you're like, okay, how do I focus more on that, right? Even when I'm not feeling good, like I started on Tuesday, it was funny. I was like, I wonder, can I book another podcast this week? I'll feel better. Like, can I like cram some more clients in because I'll feel better? That's what my brain does, because I know that it's like the energy from within will help me to feel better. So when I'm not feeling good, I don't think I need to pause and take a break. I give my body the rest, but I also think, what can I fill my days with to bring that energy from within, which is quite healing, right? So it's really paying attention to that. Our life demonstrates on a daily basis. Those are the things that we also invest the most time and energy in. And a fun thing to pay attention to too, what I love to ask clients is like, if I broke down your bank account, what does that look like? What do you spend the most money on? Because sometimes it's not your mortgage, sometimes it's something else. I have a lot of clients who really value personal development and they spend more money on personal development than they do on their own mortgage, right? Sometimes even their own kids, right? They just love it so much. And it's like, that's going to show me that that's what's most important to you, because you invest your finances in things that are highly valuable to you as well. So we'll see all these patterns in our life that demonstrate, what's actually fulfilling to us, inspiring beyond happiness. Happiness is like a dopamine rush for a moment. We're more looking for that long lasting enthusiasm, the energy, the inspiration from within.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
fantastic, and it's something when somebody's trying to realize that. Do you want them to, like, they go to the yoga class, or they do a hike and they feel this way? Should we be writing it down and trying to conceptualize on these 4 or 5 things that bring us the most energy, the most joy? Getting that on paper so that we can start seeing these common traits and these common denominators that keep you in flow.
Yeah, definitely start tracking it. Definitely track it. And then ask yourself, how can I make sure to incorporate this stuff every day? And if you own a business, I know a lot of business owners who also incorporate this. Like I had one who loves yoga. And so he just started incorporating yoga into the office, and he offers yoga classes daily if you want to attend, right? You can go if you want, you don't have to. And that's part of what he gets to do now whenever he goes to work, because he doesn't want to miss out on it. So he's just incorporated into the culture. So what's important to you, and how do you incorporate it? I use yoga because I love yoga. I know another person who loves surfing, and he does a lot of like masterminds with some of his groups, and they do surfing retreats and stuff a couple times a year, but he loves surfing. So it's like he just decided as an entrepreneur to include that into his dynamic, which is really fun. Yeah. So what do you love, and how do you incorporate it? One of my really good friends, she loves traveling. So she became a flight attendant. She's barely ever home. She loves it though. It's wild.
Yeah, no, travel is
Uh,
definitely a big one. A lot of
mm,
entrepreneurs get their, the motivation when they get out there and they get away from their world and they're able to see different places and cultures, and it excites them no matter what industry that they're in. Somebody in my EO forum group is actually going to be spending a few weeks just in Mexico City, just get him out, and it helps him. He helps for each individual. It's different, but it, helps break you out of your constant mold of the same old, and it can give you that energy. Or writers, what do? They go to a cabin and give them the break away from everything and just focus.
yeah.
You talk about most companies should have mission, vision, values, but where do you see that, where the importance should also be for the business owner, the entrepreneur, just the average worker? Should we have our own personal mission, vision, and values, and how do we implement that?
Yeah, so this one's really cool because the original the creator, when they had Sony Electronics, right? What they had said, pardon me, I'm dropping his name right now. I'm forgetting what it is, but it's something Masuko, I believe. But he had a mission statement, and it wasn't about anything that you would normally think within a company. It was to ensure that Sony was the company that made Japan the leader in electronics, right? So it was beyond the company. The mission was actually about the country. And that doesn't come from just one company and a group of individuals in a company coming up with a cool idea. That comes from a person, right? That came from an individual with a unique mission to help his country. And he used the company as a vehicle. So that's why it's pretty cool, because all of these dynamics are highly intertwined. It's just that we often don't make the links. So part of what I love to do with clients is make the links between what their personal values are and their personal mission, and what the mission within the company is, right? And so another great example is that individual I told you about, a leader in the company. His personal mission is to assist individuals in becoming financially independent and being able to build financial wealth to a great degree while having stability. Right. And part of that mission is actually played out in this company, because the way that they've built it is these individuals that work with him get a great base, and if you work hard, you could really become financially independent. Like really, really, I'm talking like decamillionaire status, like at a company. You're working at a company as a salesperson employee, and you can become a decamillionaire. That's amazing. So he's really trying to teach them how to build their own wealth. But because of the challenges that they went through growing up, right, where poverty, again, he wants to also make sure they have stability. So that's why there's a base salary. And it's really cool because you see that this individual's mission and what they would love to achieve is incorporated into the company. And then we utilize that to understand how do we apply that to the core values? Well, because he's all about teamwork, there's a lot of core values within it that is really about working as a team. Working as a team, building yourself, growth mindset, things like that that are incorporated in as well. And this is cool because the important thing about this is, we talked about this before, entrepreneurship, business owner. In the beginning, you're all hats. And sometimes, even when you're expanding your business and trying to figure things out, sometimes you wear more hats than you want to as well. It just tends to happen. It is what it is. It can be quite overwhelming. But imagine if you were doing it for a reason beyond just like the buck in your pocket, right? Like imagine that. Like what if you were doing it because you wanted to change people's lives and you saw these families grow and you saw these people grow, right? Like he's watching that happen and it brings a material of inspiration when we have the opportunity to connect with that. That's what you wake up for every day. You don't actually wake up for the business. You wake up for that why. And so that's why it's really important to have the why that you have also flowing into the dynamic of the company as well, to make sure that everyone is on track, right? Like my number one thing in life, I just expanding my own vision. I live for that all day, every day, live and breathe it. I love it so much. And so when I work with individuals, my mission as our business is to help business owners experience their vision and expand it while creating profitable companies that stand the test of time, right? And so I've created both dynamics where I get to connect with what I love while helping others connect with the same, and that lights me up. So if you ask me if I can, pull all-nighters and work all day for that, for sure, for sure. And that's why it's so important to connect with those things. And then these other dynamics too, when we have the core values, like that gets people excited, right? Like when I tell you about Sony and it wants to change an entire country and how a country is viewed, you kind of want to sign up for it, You're like, that sounds amazing. I'm going to check out Sony products because even though I've been using these products, like I love what they're doing, right? Like we love what they're doing. And then all of a sudden we're looking at a product we wouldn't look at before because of the mission behind it. So you have people signing up for it on the outside, but then the employees on the inside, like they know they're working for something really phenomenal. And then they get to wake up every day and be inspired by what they're doing. And this is the possibilities that we have. It takes a lot of work for sure, but it's like, what life do you want to live? Life is short. Do you want to wake up and be burnt out and stressed out? Just put in the work in this way instead of like, it's funny because we think we're going to escape a struggle, right? So people often don't do this work because they're like, it's too hard. It's too complicated. It is hard and it's simple, but complicated to implement, right? It can be very simple, but challenging to implement. And so most people don't want to do it. But the funny thing is you're struggling just as much. Now you're waking up, you're frustrated, things aren't organized, your employees aren't as productive, like all the stress is going on, people aren't being transparent, and like you're still tackling all these fires, but it's more just like fires that like we could have managed instead of tackling fires like, oh, I think it would be inspiring to do this next. And all the back end is nice and organized. So we can take on this challenge. We can take on this stress. So it's like, this is where when I say life by design, also choose your stresses. Choose your stresses. Like no matter what, you're going to have a stressful life. Choose the one you want. And I highly suggest really focusing on what's inspiring to you and making that the stress that you go after, because that's the one that fuels you. And even in those tough days, you're going to get over it anyways, because it's an inspiring one. It's not one that burns you out.
Yeah. And so what kind of advice do you have for businesses and entrepreneurs that have maybe gotten to that first phase and are starting to see some success? And then a lot of times there's that imposter syndrome, or they have the limited belief that they can take it to the next level. How do we get through that, even if we've prepared the mission and values of the company and our personal, and we're kind of aligned there, but now we've just got that, I don't know if is this real? How do we get it to the next level?
Yeah, and this is interesting too, because usually at that point, when I work with someone, they probably have some sort of plan put together. And this is where that imposter syndrome comes in, which is basically just comparisons. If you had never met any other business owner in your whole entire life, any other entrepreneur in your whole entire life, and you were stuck, right? You would just figure it out. right? It's only because we start comparing, like, am I doing it the right way? Am I doing it the wrong way? The self-doubt comes in, and this part of us that doesn't believe in ourselves when that comparison comes in. So you're comparing yourself to one or many people out there. There's great things about social media, right? We get a lot of information, a lot of insights, we get a lot of inspiration from it. But there's also the drawbacks, right? Which is the challenge where we're listening to all these entrepreneurs and business owners and stuff, and they're not sharing the grit of what's actually going on the background, how they actually got to where they were today. And so part of us automatically, it's interesting, I see this all the time. It's like they think that they're going to get from A to Z, and it's like almost this like straight line, right? This linear line, but it's not linear. It's just ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. And that's kind of the reality. And even once you get to that point where you're a huge business, you're still having ups and downs. You're 100% going to have ups and downs. So it's the unrealistic expectation that even in that down, there's an issue. There's no issue. You're just in one of those moments where it's like, what's next? Right? Is it a product switch? Are we working on marketing? Do we need to like focus on brand awareness? Are we not bringing in enough income? Do we need to hire someone else? Like, is that our culture? Like, are we bringing in great profits, but like we just don't actually know where to go yet? Like, how do we scale this? Like, and it's all these questions. It's funny, those moments where you say, I don't know, are the best moments, because those are the moments where we just brainstorm and we ask a million questions to see what's next. And that's normal. We only get stuck and caught and don't move forward when we're stuck in all those comparisons. Yeah, it's amazing. It's all in our head, right? And we have the answers and the tools to get to the other side, but the comparisons block us. And actually, it's by the way, it's just crazy. Like, I've seen this myself before. Yeah. When this was amazing. I was at a workshop facilitating for one of my mentors, and this was like 6 years ago or something. And I have this shit memorized, like down pat, right? Like you can just ask me, and it's just I will spout it off. I have it memorized. I love the personal development stuff so much. I got it down. And I'm sitting there and I'm getting asked a question. I was in Ireland by the lead facilitator at the time. And they're asking me a question, and I'm looking, and my brain was blank. And I looked at her and I go, I know this. I said, I know this. I said, but it's not coming to the forefront of my mind right now. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't answer the question. I know it, but I can't answer the question. And I was blocked. And then later I worked with my coach and we cleared the comparison. I had put her on a pedestal, this particular facilitator. I put her on a pedestal, compared myself to her, and put myself in the pit. And as a result, my whole brain shut down. And as soon as I cleared it, it was hysterical. My coach just sort of nonchalantly asked me the same question, like during the thing. And I just spouted it out and I was like, it's back. My brain is back. So
When you say,
yeah.
how did you clear it? So what did that look like? How did your coach
Yeah.
help you clear that?
So this is a great question, because basically the seer, the seeing, and the seeing are the same, right? This all goes back to our philosophical backgrounds and stuff, everything we know. And so when I'm comparing myself to someone, or anyone is, we're assuming that an individual on the outside has something that we don't have on the inside. And so what you do is you find out exactly what that is, and then you go find it in yourself. And you look where you have it in your form. And this also links back to our purpose, right? Like I can go and I can see where, like, what's a great example? Like, so I could go and see where someone perhaps I admire. We could do an Elon Musk or something. A lot of people like Elon Musk. So Elon Musk is going out and creating amazing things in the world, right? And he's impacting the world, right? He's impacted a lot of people with his products and services. So if I'm putting on a pedestal for that and I'm not seeing where I'm doing that myself, I will put myself in the pit and feel like something is missing. No matter who it is on the planet, you have the same thing that you see in them within yourself. I just find it in my own form. And so I can go through and look at where I have had that level of impact and have that level of reach, right? So part of it is I do a lot of podcasts, but then in my past business, like, and I've done the work on this one before, so I've gotten to like really hunker down on it. But in my past business and what I was doing before, I was doing creative direction and production for a still photographer. So I have a lot of things and photo shoots that I've produced that have been in magazines worldwide, like really like top magazines, advertisements worldwide. So can I say that I've reached as many people as he has? 100%. I just did it in my form, right? So the seer, the seeing, and the seen are the same. So we want to figure out and identify when we have that comparison exactly what they think or we think that they have that we're assuming we don't. And then we go find it in ourselves. And you keep asking that question over and over until you have certainty and you say, I have that. It's not missing in me. And all of a sudden, not only does that level the playing field, but it will open up your executive center again. That brain block that I sort of described to you goes away. And this is why I love this kind of personal development, human behavior work, as opposed to when people come to me, they'll ask me questions on what I should do. And then we laugh because I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. We're going to clear whatever's like blocking your brain from working. We're going to clear that misperception, those comparisons. And then at the end of the consult, it's like, what do you want to do? And then they have the answer, right? And so that gets your objectivity back on. Because here's the thing about the comparisons, if you're comparing yourself and you think you're missing something, your brain is going to try to fill that void. And all of a sudden, the decisions it's making is it starts to try to mimic these other people. We become mimics of them. We try to do what they do. Sometimes I think one of the most amazing things, I do this a lot, so it's really fun because you really get to see the little consistencies. There was one where I kept working on someone who I had a high infatuation with, and my voice changed. And I was like, I have been mimicking their voice tone. I was like, that's amazing. And all of a sudden, it's like after I did it, my voice was just different. And I was like, this is me. This is what I sound like. So we actually try to mimic them consciously and unconsciously. And when you clear that comparison, all that goes away and your natural self comes forward, your objective center. Yeah, your soul, your vision, your purpose. And you start to do things and take actions the way that you want. Yeah, that's why I love this work is everyone has the intelligence, the ability within them. It's just clearing all that junk that's blocking it. Like I don't have it, you have it. And so it's like, if we could just clear that junk, then it comes forward.
And this type of work
Mhm.
too, I assume helps the leader become a better leader to their team and their stakeholders.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, they're more authentic. And if you're practicing what you preach, right? Because if you're an authentic leader, what are you going to do? You're going to put core values in a company that don't align with you or the company. You're going to put a vision, mission that you think it should be instead of what is meant to be. And then you're going to walk around and you're not going to actually go and live by those values. You're not going to go live by the mission of the company. And then all your employees see it. So why do they need to hold themselves accountable? We can't actually practice what we preach unless we're literally authentic enough to understand, like, no, this is the vision mission of the company. This is my vision mission. This is the core values of the company. Because then you're naturally going to live by them on a day-to-day basis. You don't have to try. You don't have to try to live on purpose. You don't. You just do it naturally. And so that's why it's really helpful with leaders when we give them the opportunity to be more of their natural, authentic self and live by example. And then the prides and shame shift as well. Because if you don't have to show up and be proud, guess what you're also going to do as a leader? You're going to admit when you mess up, which is really helpful for the people with you, right? Like, and you admit that you have challenges and you admit that there's like other things going on in your life, right? Like I remember there was a Brene Brown audiobook that I listened to, and it was one of my favorites. So I was like, thanks for sharing that, where she said she showed up at one of her speaking events and it was for a group of marketing individuals, and her brain went into comparison mode and was like, I shouldn't be here, right? But she shared the whole story of how she went through that and the challenge and how she overcame it at the level she's at. And you're like, that's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear the truth of what people are really going through and what's going on, because it helps clear our unrealistic expectations. And then you realize in these moments that you're building up to be maybe someone like that or someone at that level, that you already have that within you. You listen to that and you're like, oh, I have those challenges too. And you love it because you feel relatable when people are authentic enough to share what's really going on. And if you don't have that pride or shame because you're being authentic, guess what? You're more willing to share it. So it really changes the dynamic of who you are as a leader. It's very cool.
Yeah. So in other words,
Yeah.
the leader can take off their body armor and be vulnerable and do it
Yeah.
in a manner that's not going to position them in a less powerful way, and get their mindset that the more vulnerable, the more authentic, the more the team will be aligned with what the company and what the leader's trying to accomplish. And it's
For
hard though. It's
sure.
easier said than done to do that. I think they teach
Yeah.
us from well, there's not a lot of teaching on, but it's always like, just kind of run through a wall, keep running through a wall, and it's going to be okay. But, sometimes the people that are along the way with you in the boat, you got to make sure that they know where you stand on things. And that takes personal work.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that example too, because if like everyone on your team knows why you're running through that wall and the why, this is the mission and the core values and why it's so important, they're like, oh, you're having a really hard time getting through that wall. Let me help you. And so all of a sudden you have a team that's inspired to help you get through that wall. And now you're not running through a wall anymore. Now you have a team like taking it down and making a path. Right. So that's what we think about. We don't just want you to be inspired. We want your team to be inspired too. But that initial like result is going to come from you getting inspired enough to put all this stuff into place.
And have you been able to see where the clients you've been working with, not just themselves and their employees and maybe, shaping where the clients or customers they have, but is there a way that this can be instilled into the next generation then, their own kids? Because they
Yeah.
don't teach any of this stuff, in school or even in college, unless you're really going down the path of human behavior. What are some of those things that the listeners that have kids that are maybe in their teenage years or in college years, how do we instill some of this in them so that they can be ahead of the game as they get out into the workforce?
Yeah, you could start way young, by the way, guys. So I have nieces, so I get to mess around with them a little bit from time to time. I'll have kids fairly soon, but it's been fun with my nieces. And I've done this like human behavior stuff. The earliest I could get them to get like an aha moment was about 3.5 years old, which was really fun. And you kind of test it out every now and then, right? But that was pretty cool. The youngest actual client I've had has been 7 years old. And that
Wow.
7 year old was connected to vision, mission, and purpose, right? And he already knows what he wants to do. And he's already trying to figure out a pathway to get there. So that's pretty cool. So when I say that you can definitely do it at a very young age, you can. It's the same thing I'm asking us to do for ourselves. We're just going to do for our kids. When you look at your kids are, again, going to be repetitive. They're going to have these repetitions, these patterns, these things that they do that are highly important to them, right? And pay attention to what that is. Because when you look at that, you're going to see, again, this pattern form. And then you say to yourself, well, how do I nurture this pattern? And nurturing this pattern is not over support, right? It's not over support because if we have a kid who loves sports, they don't become a great athlete by making them think they're going to win all the time and giving them a win even if they lost. They become a great athlete by saying, oh, you lost today. Well, what do you think you could improve? Is there something that we could do practice wise? Do you want like to work on something with a coach on the side? Like, what does that look like? Is there some training? What skills do you require to become the athlete that you want? Because you did just lose. This person was better than you. I wonder why, right? So we don't want to use the comparisons to put ourselves in the pit, but we want to use that comparison as a base point, right? So it's like, how do we utilize that to not just support the children, but really push them and challenge them in something that's really viable and something that's inspiring to them? And pay attention to what that is to your kids, right? Like again, growing up, it was a lot of fitness and I really just had a void at a certain point. I was like, a little bit overweight at a certain point and pretty overweight. And then also just nobody liked me in school. Like all the guys just thought I was like ugly. So I went through this stage where that void got so big that I turned into the health nut. Right. So I turned into the health nut and I lost weight and I started focusing on beauty and I started focusing on all this other stuff. So the void created the value and it was never easy. Right. But everyone was pushing me to get to where I want to go. And still, even present day, like I love my dad and my mom. They're transparent with me. They're honest with me. If I gain weight, they're honest with me. And I want that. Like, because it's important to me and they're pushing me and challenging me. They're not like pretending it's not happening. They're like, oh, you have gained a little weight. I'm like, you're right. I'm going to get back on my food. I'm going to get back on this. Right. And it's like, oh, nutrition shift. And so it's challenging someone in something that's inspiring to really get them to go to the other side. So when we think about kids, pay attention to the patterns. That's really important. And you're going to find that your kid focuses on 3 to 5 things that they love. And how do you just challenge and support them to carry on and pursue that? And you'll notice at a certain point, like if it's something that they're destined to do, they're a bit obsessive over it. They'll be obsessive. My cousin, he's awesome. He started flying when he was really young. You know, when your kid, like your parents sit you on your lap sometimes and you get to like hold the wheel. I don't know whose parents did that, but my parents did. It was really fun. And I was really young. I remember being like 7 or 8 and they're like, you sit on my lap and hold the wheel. And we'd like just drive down the block, right? And you're like, this is cool. So my cousin did that, but he did it in a plane, right? Because his dad was a pilot. And now he's one of the top aerial coordinators in the country, right? In the world as a result of that. And he's in his 30s. So we're seeing that this child was basically obsessed with that dynamic and obsessed with doing it. And they kept nurturing him and challenging him and supporting him and challenging him and supporting him. And then you become one of the best in the world. Not from just doing support, but from identifying what's important and challenge and support along the way. And people will do great things. So pay attention to your kids. And even if you don't like it, it's not about you. Someone in the world somewhere absolutely loves it. I just worked with that on someone whose kid loves fashion. And fortunately, I got to give him some great examples because I've worked in that industry for quite some time. And he was like, I just thought it was a bad thing. And I was like, no, can you see it's just a thing? And he's like, it's just a thing. And he's like, I think I'll help her out and see if she wants to do some like clothing design stuff. And I was like, that's awesome. Yeah.
Well, thanks for being vulnerable.
Mhm.
There you go, listeners. Earlier, but that vulnerability, that's, storytelling is a big piece of how we can express how these things can be helpful and beneficial and so forth. One piece of advice. So let's say we've got somebody who is stuck. They maybe are working in a field or for a company or for an executive team that they just know they're not happy, and they have this vision or this goal of starting their own company.
Okay.
What's a quick advice for them to try to get unstuck to get them to follow their dream?
Yeah, definitely go through, you listen to this again, go through and see how your life is demonstrating these patterns of things. You can listen to this again so you can really start to identify those patterns and what's important to you. A great thing to look at is, what do you love? Where is there a need for that in the world? And then you kind of, it's like the 3 circles, right? And then in the circle in between that connects us all is what's the product or service that connects what you love with the individuals in the world. Like if you really just want to create a business around something you love, there's definitely things that you can do. And before you do anything, break it down. Just break it down. Break down all the steps realistically of what it would take to create that. None of the fantasy stuff where they tell you you're going to launch stuff in like a month to 3 months or any crap like that. Like really break it down and see, is this going to take me a year? Is this going to take me 2 years, 3 years? And start to put together a realistic game plan where every day you can take little baby steps to get there. And eventually you'll get to a point where you're like, okay, like I can move forward. I can move on. Like it's time for me to move to the next step. Right. And you'll know. So it's really cool. That's the most important thing, is to just make it a real goal. And real goals are breaking things down so that every day we're focused and we're doing it. Weight loss and fitness is a great example, because if I just say I'm going to go to the gym and I break down the goals and how to like get a great body, but then I never go to the gym and I never change my food patterns, what's going to happen? I'm going to stay the same, right? So we want you to break down those goals into digestible chunks so small that every day you have little action steps to take. And it's compound interest, which there's a great book on that as well. It's called Compound something. I can't remember, but it's amazing. And if you look at it, it's just about how doing these little things every day builds compound interest in your life. And it's like building compound interest in a bank, and you just watch it grow, 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 grow. So even those tiny steps make big differences. You don't have to take big leaps, just tiny steps all the time. And then eventually when you make the big leap and you shift, it won't feel that big anymore because you did all this groundwork. Yeah. To really break it down.
Great advice
Yeah.
there. And then as we wind down, have you seen any shifts in the industry, in your industry, over the next 5 and 10 years in the personal development? There's been a lot of changes since the pandemic 5 years ago, but what do you envision that your world's going to look like in the course of the next 5, 10 years?
Yeah, I'm actually so curious to see what happens, especially with AI. So we're flooded with coaches, genuinely. Like we're flooded. And I haven't been too worried about that. That's not a worry. And even the AI, I've tested out and stuff. I'm not too worried about that either in replacing coaches. However, it will replace these individuals if they're not getting the depth of knowledge and the depth of experience to really like, you really have to be an expert. I think with AI coming into the picture, like you have to be an expert and you have to be able to go beyond and do things beyond what these computers can do, which is fascinating. So I think it's fun because it's like a really inspiring way to me. If you really love this, you're going to push yourself to make sure that you could beat it, right? You're going to push yourself. But if you don't love it, you're going to drop out. And so I think it's going to be really cool because I think you're going to see a lot of amazing individuals really come forward and refine their skills to a greater degree. And that's going to be very cool to see. And I think people are going to get some amazing results, and you're going to see a lot of people drop out and kind of get replaced by these different dynamics. So I think that coaching may be, when you hire someone like me, almost more of a specialty dynamic where you really wanted to like super dive deep, right? And then all the basic stuff, like basically you get to delegate to AI in this sense.
Yes.
Which I don't mind.
Still having
I
that
like
human
the deep
connection,
stuff.
which is so important.
Yeah.
The human connection. Well, this has been great. So if I'm like, how do you find your clients? Do they find you? And all the in the show notes will be your website, carlypepin.com.
Yeah.
And all the some of the areas and things that you discussed in there. But how does your avatar client find you?
Right now, it's mainly repeats and referrals. And then I love networking in my own way. So you might meet me at a yoga workshop.
Yes, I'd love you there too.
It is what it is.
So, any last words of wisdom for our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, life is definitely going to be stressful no matter what, but we want to really focus on creating stress, which is inspiring stress, and it's actually healthy for your body. So do the work to make this happen for yourself. It's possible for everyone. This isn't like a unique thing, and everyone is allowed to do it, can do it, and it's worth it. Your life is short, so live it the way that you would love to.
That's a great way to end it. Well, Carly, thanks for sharing your words of wisdom, your energy to in making each and every one of your clients to have a better day, a better month, a better year, and you're practicing what you preach. So we'll continue to watch your success, and you're doing great work. And we as entrepreneurs, we need that guidance. So definitely for listeners, viewers, coaches, and having that team approach to help you get to the next level, that's what we need. We can't do it alone. And remember, be vulnerable and know your mission, know your purpose. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. We appreciate you. And listeners, we will have a brand new episode of Your Wealth and Beyond coming up later in the month. Happy planning, everybody. We'll talk real soon.